What's up, everybody? It's Jerry from Adventures in Homebrewing.beer, and got this Gile House pump that we're going to be going through and doing a review on. But in order to hook up this pump to things like this mash and boil or anything else that you want to go through and pump, you need some connections. So I ordered myself the Gile House setup. The connection kit that goes with the pump. So let's see what's in here. So we've got some nice silicone tubing. Super important to use a good heavyweight tubing with your pump because of the fact of you want something that's not going to blow out on you. So let's see. Some Teflon tape for the connections. A new two-piece ball valve, so that will go onto the output of the pump because you want to be able to control your flow. There are four sets of quick connects. So this will clip on, and then it's just a quick, try that again, snaps together, quick disconnect, so that'll make things a little bit easier for setting things up. So some hose clamps. This was nice because it is hopefully everything that I need in one package. So I'm going to go ahead and put all this together, and then I'm going to try out this pump. So playing around with this ball valve, I noticed I couldn't move it, and then I realized that it has a nice little lock on it, so it stays locked open or locked close. That's definitely a nice little add-on to the ball valve. So looking carefully, there was a set of instructions in the box for the Easy Transfer pump connection kit, which is great. A few things that it talks about is to make sure to put on the Teflon tape to both the inlet and the outlet of the pump. Super important thing because that'll make sure that there's not leaks coming through those connections. So realize that you should be wrapping clockwise when you are wrapping the Teflon tape. So hold it in your left hand and bring it around, so that way when you screw it on, it tightens down and it doesn't come unraveled. So keep that in mind. There are cleaning instructions included as well that talks about, you know, soaking the tubing in PBW for a nice deep clean, but also making sure that you do clean out that tube before you put it away, so it doesn't have any wort dry in there, because that'll make it more difficult to clean later on. So I've now gone through and I've hooked up my connections. So I've got the ball valve. I made sure that when I put it on, it'll open straight up, so there's a good amount of clearance for that. And then I put the connection on down here. So it's like I was shown before, it's really great with these quick connects because it just goes on and it doesn't come off until you pull, but you can do that one-handed, which is great. So now that we've got this set up, it's time to get the tubing ready. So I'm also going to be applying Teflon tape to the, they label this as the male stainless quick disconnect threads, because like that will go here into the ball valve as one of my connections. So you want to make sure that all of these threads have the Teflon tape on it as well. So now I've got Teflon tape on all of these. The first thing I'm going to do is get that one connected in. So now we are good to go here, and it's time to go ahead and do the other end. So I am going to go with a little bit of an audible here because of the valve that's hooked up to the mash and boil. I'm not going to put the quick disconnect on one end because I'll still put the worm clamp on here and I'll move it on and off and clamp it on. I will put it on the other end. This is about 9 feet of silicone tubing. It's a really heavy weight, which is great. So I'm going to have to do some cutting. So basically I'm going to think about the height of where I'm going to have the mash and boil, or whatever unit I'm going to be pulling out of. It could be my mash tun, it could be the my pot that I use to boil and things like that. Think about the height. The pump needs to be lower than that, so that way it can help prime it and everything. I am going to cut this down to some different lengths to kind of help me out. And I have to think about the fact that it's going to then be coming up and into another vessel, so these will not be equal pieces, so that's going to be part of my setup. My first tube that would be coming from my mash and boil, for example, I cut down to a 4-piece length, and so what happens is this quick disconnect slides right in there, and I'm just going to go through and tighten this down on there, so then that way this is all set. It just takes away a leak point, so as you need in any handy dandy brewery, screwdriver. That's nice and tightened down. That's sucker's not moving now, so that'll make my quick connect go very easily. When I do hook this up to the mash and boil, I'll probably put a worm clamp on there just to kind of tighten down, so as the pressure is coming through it doesn't pull off or anything, since I'm going right onto the barb that's on there. So this is the first connection of what I'm going to make. So I've decided to make another modification, and that's because with the Bouncer MD, which is a great filtration unit, I've got these nice 1/2-inch hookups. So I'm going to basically get it set. I'll put a quick disconnect to go onto the pump. But I'll leave the other end set so I can then hook a bouncer in, so I can filter from, say, the mash and boil going into my keg while using the pump, so that way I can keep some of the dregs out, and so that's a great thing. And again, I'll use the worm clamps that go along. That's a great thing about the flexibility of this kit. You can kind of move things around and change things as far as what you need. So I've got it set up. So I've got my quick disconnect on one end, hooked into my Bouncer Mac Daddy, and then coming out, so that way it'll go into the keg or whatever I'm currently filtering into. With the quick disconnect, it's going to go right on there, and then we're ready to go. So now I just need to go through and do some sanitizing before I go through and filter my beer that's coming from my fermenter. I'm using the mash and boil because it's heated, and I was doing a Milk the Funk quick sour blend, which likes some nice warm temperatures. With the mash and boil, I keep it on a higher temperature, and then I can keep it at that set temperature for a couple days. This was a co-pitch of both yeast and some little funkies in there to get a nice sour blend going. This is a dry hopped fruitcaked sour. So I actually dropped a couple fruitcakes right into it, looking to utilize the sugars and the flavors of all that candied fruit to add a little something extra to my sour. So I decided to try something new this time for recirculation. Usually I just put a little pan underneath the ball valve and take some of the wort out and then dump it in on top. But today I've set this up a little bit differently. So we've got the Gile House pump, and that is hooked up to the ball valve over there, and then it's going to go up and around and in. I've got the hack of just kind of holding the tube in place with this and then the top. So I've opened up the ball valve and primed the pump a little bit. This is just a little open because I want to control the flow. So we've got that all set, and let's fire it up and see how it turns out. I had a little air bubble in there, but you can see that this is doing a crazy job for pumping through. So I'm actually going to kind of slow down the flow. So that'll give a chance for it to go through and meet kind of like a good stasis level here between the two. So we're going to slow that down to just a small drip in to give it a chance to kind of balance out the system. Then we're going to close it back up and let it run for a while. I thought I'd give a quick update. Seems like the pump is running just fine, and I think I can see it running in there. So we've got a nice recirculation going on. The pump is super quiet, and it doesn't seem to be heating up much, which is good. And my temperature is staying very accurate and very stable throughout all of this, so that's a great thing. So this is something that should give me some more better utilization of my mash, and hopefully some higher efficiencies, because that would just be a great thing on the system to increase the efficiency of things. Now, just the other day I did the Brewtuber's Malt Experiment 2020, and I actually used all wheat for mine, so I'm a little concerned with efficiency on the system after, with that, only hitting about 60.2 according to my calculations, which is a super low efficiency for something like the Brewer's Edge Mash and Boil. I think a lot of that has to do because of the malt itself, with it being just wheat. But I think that had I done a recirculation, I may have gotten a little bit higher utilization and efficiency. I did not use any sort of glucoamylase or beta amylase or anything like that on that. I wanted to stick right to the recipe. But with this, I figured I would give it a shot with the recirculation and see what happens, and so far so good. I'm really happy with how quiet this is and how well it seems to be running. So, great job, Gile House. On an hour of recirculation using the Gile House Brew Pump, and so basically it's pumping out of the ball valve that's attached to the mash and boil into the pump, and then from the pump up, and I've just got a little basic clip here to hold it in place, and then I've got a couple of the clamps on the top to kind of hold the tube so it sits in one place. So I may want to think about drilling a hole and putting like a sprayer on the inside of the cover of this so it can connect into that, maybe by adding a half-inch NPT connection to that, or I can just stick with this. One thing I have noticed is across the hour, the pump is pumping wort through that is in the 148 to 160 range. I've noticed that there's been a little bit of a fluctuation in my temperature on my mash and boil, but this is starting to get to the point where it is getting warm. I don't think I could pick that up to hang on to it for a while. So, you know, something to take into consideration. It does get warm, but, you know, it's been running for almost a complete hour at this point. So, overall, looking at this pump is working well. We'll see what happens with my efficiency after we do the boil and check the gravity readings and everything right before we pitch the yeast. So I'll be curious to see how that turns out. But as far as how it's running while the mash is going on, I'm very happy with it, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to hook it up right to my regular Denny Con mash tun as well, because I just installed a new ball valve on that, so I can put a quick disconnect in on that. So, seems like it's a great pump. It's super quiet. My air conditioner condenser pump is actually louder, and with the air conditioning running and me being next to the blower for that, I just hear a little trickle of water that's getting pumped through, but I don't hear the pump at all. So super quiet pump, no worries about crazy loud noise with that. So that's another plus for this.